Oh, my thing's.
Someone must have changed. I heard. See, you can't stop, can you?
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order. Wonderful to have so many folks joining us this afternoon in the audience. So welcome members of PAC, welcome staff. Today is Tuesday, July 15th, 2025. We're in Municipal Council chambers here in Colebrook, and we'll begin our meeting this afternoon by taking roll call. If you could all indicate on your electronic pin pads whether or not you are present for the record, it would be very helpful. Thank you. For those new or who've not been to a council or PAC meeting before, we use these electronic voting pads to register our votes. It takes about 10 seconds between when the vote is called and the results to show. So as you can see, we are all present, even though, we can tell. I do like to vote and have it up there, just so we know the system's working and everything's kosher. Alrighty. We've done our roll call. The meeting is called to order. At this point in the agenda, I look to see if there are any amendments to the agenda that was circulated for today. Would anyone like to amend the agenda for any reason? Okay, have no lights. Then I'd look for a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Deputy Mayor Peckford, seconded by Councillor Gates. Discussion on the motion to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor or otherwise, please indicate in the usual fashion. Oh, and I can introduce myself too. I'm Councillor Emily Lutz. I'm the chair of PAC. So once we have an approved agenda, I'll ask for any, Mr. Deal and Ms. Friars, any objections to the agenda? No? Just slow on the draw. 10 seconds wasn't enough. Okay. It's not working. Okay. We did roll call, so I know that that's not true. I saw it. It's okay. You'll vote next time. I'm sure of it. Okay. The agenda is approved, despite two not negatives, but two non-shown up votes. So we're unanimously in favor of that agenda for the record. Does anyone have any items of conflict of interest that they wish to disclose at this time? Okay, perfect. No conflict of interest issues. Item 6, approval of the minutes. Our last meeting was June 10th, 2025. Any errors or omissions in those minutes? Okay, seeing none, look for a motion to approve those minutes. Moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Peckford. Any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes? Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor or otherwise, please indicate in the usual fashion. And while we wait for the vote, I would note, I was emailing with someone earlier today about the length of time for comments from the public. It's 5 minutes. So just so and I don't set a firm timer. In the vicinity of 5 minutes is what we allow for each person. So good luck, and I'll let you wrap your brain around that length of time before we get there at the item 11 on the meeting agenda. Okay. Citizen Member Friars, did you vote? Oh, I didn't vote. Jeez. Are you in favor of the minutes? Yes, I'm also in favor of the minutes, but I can't remember to vote either. So unanimously approved those minutes from June 10th. Thanks. Any business arising? Anything to be aware of to be brought forward due to those minutes? Okay, seeing none. Item 8, our semi-annual progress report. We have Manager Laura Mosier here with us, who will be giving us our first semi-annual report. It's the first, right? First of this council.
Yes.
First of
Yes,
this
that's
council,
correct.
semi-annual progress report on the land use bylaw and municipal planning strategy. The floor is yours, Laura.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is our semi-annual progress report. We started doing these last year with the amendment to, well, we started with our housekeeping amendments, but we recently updated our planning policies, and now we will be doing these twice a year from now on, around the June-July time period, and then the December-January time period. The policy currently says June and December, but we may look to amend that to have July and January, just to ensure that we're working within our calendar year. A 5-month update doesn't feel as good as a 6-month update, if that makes sense. So, as I mentioned, Policy Plan 09-003 requires that staff present information related to the applications we've received and completed. Also, the results or status of any appeals that are before or have been before the Regulatory and Appeals Board in this previous 6-month period, an update on ongoing planning projects, and a summary of development activity. Currently, we are under contract with the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation for a Housing Accelerator Fund, so we'll be giving you updates on that as well as part of our development activity update. So first, as is topical for this committee, our planning applications. We received a total of 31 applications during this previous period. Sorry, one second. I knew that seemed like a lot. So we received 31 applications since we last reported to you. So that would have been about a year. So we did receive mostly land use bylaw amendments or rezoning applications, followed by development agreements, and then we had 6 text amendments, as well as 2 substantive development agreement amendments and 2 development agreement discharges. For those that are more visually focused, this is our breakdown within a pie chart. As you can see, 45% of our applications were rezonings, 23 were development agreements, 6% were DA discharges, and 7% substantive amendments. Those were substantive amendments, not non-substantive, and 19% text amendments. In terms of use breakdown, the vast majority are residential applications or applications for residential uses, followed by commercial, tourism, institutional, industrial, and commercial recreation. So commercial recreation and tourism are related, as we all know, and it's not surprising that that is the highest number of well, aside from the commercial ones, tourism tends to be a fairly significant part of our applications as it forms a fairly significant part of our economy here in the Valley. So again, for the visually minded, this is our breakdown in pie graph form. Residential definitely leading the charge there. In terms of the applications we've completed in the last 6 months, or since we last reported to you, there were 11 applications completed. This may sound a little low, as your report discusses. However, in 2023 and 2024, we did have a below average number of applications. We typically receive between 20 and 25 applications a year. And 2023 and 2024 were both below that average. However, this year is on track to be significantly above average year. We've already received 18 applications, which would put us on a trend for roughly 30 applications this year, but we'll report back in December or January to let you know if that shook out. In terms of our appeals to the Utility and Review Board, in the last 6-month period, we've had 5 active appeals. To date, 4 have been completed, with 3 showing council's decision upheld. 1 saw council's decision reversed, and we currently have 1 appeal pending. In terms of our permit data, it should not be surprising, given the breakdown of our applications, that most of them are for residential uses. The vast majority of these permits occur under as-of-right development permissions, so these would be developments that are permitted under the land use bylaw. We like to share this information because there often is a bit of a misconception with councilors, and not just this council, but every council across the country, that every permit comes before you, or a significant number of the permits come before you, and that's simply not the case. Most development occurs under an as-of-right condition in the municipality, which means our documents are working quite well. The rest were non-residential at 21%. So this is slightly below average for the 2021-2024 period, which again, not surprising given it's sort of on trend. If we look at the below average number of applications, it stands to reason, even if they are as of right, all of our applications operate in the same economy, the same market. So if we see a bit of a lull in one area, it's likely that we'll see it in others as well. Our residential permits are equivalent to those in 2020, but given the higher number of applications, I would suspect that the permit numbers will pick up as well. In terms of our Housing Accelerator Fund, so those may be familiar with it, this is a program that the federal government launched a couple of years ago in response to the countrywide housing crisis that we've been having. The municipality of the County of Kings was successful in receiving a grant of $5.9 million in exchange, or as part of that agreement, that contract, we're required over the 3-year period, it is a 3-year period, to generate a total of 796 residential units across the municipality, of which 361 are required to be missing middle, which are units that are within a built form containing 2 or more units and having a height of less than 5 stories. We are on track to meet our requirements. We currently have 48% of our total units completed and 68% of our missing middle units completed. We're sort of 1.5 years into this, so we are on track to complete. I would note, however, that in our previous years, we did have a number of planning applications that saw significant numbers of units approved. I think it's roughly 800 units we have approved from planning applications that have not yet been constructed. So there is lots of potential in that pipeline to meet these targets set by the CMHC. In terms of ongoing planning projects, we currently have our Growing Greenwich project coming out of a motion of council that sought to expand the growth center of New Minas into the area of the municipality known as Greenwich. So we have conducted 2 engagement sessions in the spring, and we have an upcoming session in the fall with approval anticipated to occur following that. We also have our draft bylaw 113, our subdivision bylaw and municipal specifications that is moving through the approval process right now. We did have our public participation meeting and a recommendation to council in June. And that concludes our semi-annual review. I'll pass it back to the chair for discussion, and if not, then we can move the recommendation, which is on the screen.
Wonderful. Thank you, Laura. Are there any questions on the presentation from members of the Planning Advisory Committee? Mr. Morris, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Ms. Mosier. Just wondering, the Growing Greenwich thing, does that include expansion of the village or only the growth center?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Morse. It's currently just the growth center. That's where our jurisdiction lies. If the village wishes to expand its boundary, it needs to go to the Regulatory and Appeals Board.
Thank you.
Good question, Mr. Morse. Anything further from Planning Advisory? Okay, I see no lights. At this point, I'd entertain the motion to receive the results of the semi-annual review set out in the report to the Planning Advisory Committee dated June 10th, 2025. Is that June 10th? That's when the...
Sorry, there's a typo in the report. It should be July 15th.
15th.
So,
you could have fooled me that it was June 10th.
I had July 15th in my presentation, but
That's okay.
Lorian and Leslie are on the ball with the motion on the screen. So.
All good. So July 15th, the little amendment there. Do I have a mover of this motion? Moved by Citizen Member Fires, seconded by Citizen Member Morse. Any discussion on the motion to receive the results? Seeing no lights, all in favor or otherwise, please indicate in the usual fashion by pressing your button. Aha, we've all voted unanimously. Thank you, Planning Advisory Committee, and thank you, Ms. Mosier, for your presentation. At this point, we'll move to item 9, which is our regular business of the committee. And we have only one item today, an application to enter into a development agreement on Greenfield Road, PID 55224067, Gasbro. And we have Planner Perry Bowman with us this afternoon. Welcome, Perry, to PAC.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And you have the floor when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Okay, so this afternoon we are here to discuss a development agreement application for PID 55224067 Greenfield Road in Gasbro. So, as we always start with, this is our map of the municipality of the County of Kings, with the red circle indicating the approximate location of the subject site within the community of Gasbro. This is an aerial image of the subject site. The subject site is approximately 7 acres in area and has approximately 315 feet of road frontage to Greenfield Road. The property extends in from Greenfield Road behind the dwellings which front Greenfield Road on the northern side, and then is bound on the southern side by the Gasbro River and a stream that comes off of the Gasbro River. There is an existing fishing or commercial fishing operation that is located on the subject site. We have 2 of the existing commercial buildings that are used as part of that operation on the site right next to the river. That operation runs for the month of May each year. And I guess a more close-up version of the site. So this access to the subject site is currently via a right-of-way, which runs through 2944 Greenfield Road, which is outlined in yellow. The length of this accessway is approximately 320 feet and is permitted via the deed of this property, subject property, sorry. Across the site from south to north, we have an approximate increase of 40 feet across the site, with the Gaspereau River being at the lowest end of the site, and I guess the northern boundary being the highest point of the site. So, in terms of the proposal, the application has come to us for, the applicant / owners of the land to enter into a development agreement with the county to permit a tourist commercial use with up to 8 tourist cabins on the land. I will note that when the application was originally submitted, the original proposal was for up to 12 cabins. So it has been amended in January of this year to reduce the number to a maximum of 8 cabins on the land. So this is a proposed map or plan of the proposal. So we have access off of the right-of-way into the subject site, which deviates from the existing access to the commercial fishing operation, up to the 8 cabins. I will note that as part of the original proposal, the setback from the neighbouring properties on the northern side was set at 40 feet. As part of the amended proposal, it has been increased to 110 feet, with this dome here being approximately, well, it's the closest at 174 feet from this neighbouring property here. So all other domes are in excess of that 174 feet. As part of the investigative process, the applicant undertook a topographical survey of the subject site, and they did identify the, I guess we'll call the crest of the slope as running through this central portion of the land here. So further to that, the 6 domes to the south of the new accessway are proposed to be 1-bedroom, I guess 2 people domes, whereas the 2 domes to the north of the accessway are proposed to be 2-bedroom, the barrier-free domes, which would allow for accessible standards as required by the building code. So the commercial fishing operation is still intended to run as normal during the month of May, with the tourist domes permitted throughout the year. In addition, there is proposed to be a utility and laundry building to the south of the accessway in this bottom southern corner down here. Okay, and this is just a bit more of a close-up view. The domes are proposed, well, as shown in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. The domes to the south of the accessway are proposed to have a retaining wall as required around the rear of the domes, and they are proposed to be set lower into the ground, so there will be limited visibility of them above this crest of the hill, with only the 2 two-bedroom domes clearly visible at the top of the hill from the properties that flank Greenfield Road to the north. So moving into zoning, this is our zoning map of the area. The site is located in the rural mixed use A2 zone, and the bottom portion of the property is also covered by the environmental constraints O1 zone, and then there are little peaks of the environmental sensitive area ESA zone. So the O1 zone does restrict what land uses can occur and what development can occur within it, but the ESA only talks about having additional development standards rather than restricting land use. So further to that, the rural mixed use A2 zone does not permit tourist commercial uses with more than 2 cabins on the land as of right. So therefore we are relying on section 8.4.5 of the land use bylaw, which directs staff to the municipal planning strategy to consider tourism and visitor related uses, which we will discuss further into the presentation. Okay, So the subject site and surrounds are all located within the agricultural designation, which will come up later in the presentation as well. So this is an image of the subject site. We're looking down the access way towards the commercial fishing operation, and we are inside the subject site where this photo is taken. We can see one of the buildings which is used for the commercial fishing operation, and there is a horse stable on the land as well, up at the top of the ridge. Again, this is further down the accessway, again looking at that one of the buildings used as part of the commercial fishing operation, and then we have some of the infrastructure which is used for fishing. Again, looking at the infrastructure used as part of the fishing operation and the actual river itself. So this is standing pretty much at the crest of the hill, looking down at the two buildings used as part of the commercial fishing operation. I guess we will note here that there is quite a spectacular view over that valley as well. So this is looking back at the rear of some of the dwellings which front Greenfield Road, and probably more on some of the flatter section at the top of the ridge. And then again at some of the flatter area here, looking northeast towards the rear of some of the dwellings fronting Greenfield Road. And then we're looking at the Gasborough Vineyard buildings here, and we're more on kind of the western end of the property here. And then this is the right-of-way access, which provides access through 2944 Greenfield Road to the subject site currently. I will note, based on the plan, that the new access way for the proposed domes will kind of deviate somewhere in this vicinity, as this is the subject site here to the left. Okay, so in terms of public consultation, 19 property owners within 500 feet of the subject property were notified by mail prior to the public information meeting. A public information meeting was held at the Gasborough Community Centre on September the 4th, 2024, and the associated presentation was made available on the municipal website after that meeting. And a notice of the public information meeting was made available on social media on August 27th. So, in terms of the public feedback regarding this application, there were a range of different areas, which I guess I've just titled here, but I will discuss them momentarily. And I will note that there's a lot more information in the report that has been provided as part of your agenda package today. So, in terms of road safety and traffic, residents and community members advise that Greenfield Road is not necessarily super busy, but people tend to speed, and they have different periods of time where there are time periods of traffic. And so given there are no sidewalks, people feel that there is concern regarding safety of pedestrians and cyclists on the road. In addition, they have mentioned that there have been accidents or collisions in the area, and are worried that unfamiliar drivers and new drivers to the area coming to tourist accommodation will add a level of unsafety further to existing conditions. So as part of that concern, I did refer the application through to the RCMP and the Nova Scotia Department of Public Works, who is the body with jurisdiction over the road. The RCMP advised that they only have one collision on record in the last 5 years, and that was in 2022, and that was in vicinity of the subject site. In addition to that, the Nova Scotia Department of Works, all of these concerns were passed on to them. They did not raise any concern with the proposal, but only advised that they required the access to the property to still occur through the existing right-of-way in order to meet stop sighting distances. In addition to that, they did note that the increase in traffic from this proposal would be negligible in terms of their assessment of the proposal, so they didn't raise any concern in regards to that. The next point was, I guess, agricultural noise. So the community expressed that this is an area where agriculture occurs, along with other rural businesses which do create noise, and were worried that the residents or guests of this accommodation would complain, and that may impact how they operate their businesses. So as a result of that, a condition in the draft development agreement effectively required the owners to acknowledge that this is an agricultural area where noise, odors, dust, and other things like flies may occur as a result of existing agricultural uses. And that is to, put in the first point of mitigation in making guests aware that this is an agricultural area. So as to hopefully avoid some of those complaints / unreasonable expectations. The third point was raised in regard to light, particularly lights from the proposal shining into neighbouring residential properties, and not having a way of enforcing, the amount of light that comes out of the proposal, and further to that, the noise of guests. So as a condition of the draft development agreement, we have put in place a requirement that lighting be shaded and facing away from residential dwellings to mitigate impact on neighbouring residential properties. And further to that, in regard to noise, there is a condition within the draft development agreement that requires areas where people or guests might congregate, such as fire pits or seating, be located be set back that 110 feet at a minimum from the neighbouring residential dwellings. The fourth point, so a number of the neighbouring residents, along with community members, as well as the owners of the site, are fishing operations within the Gaspereau River. So there was some concern that this proposal, whether it's through septic runoff or other forms of runoff, might impact the fishing operation, which is, the main source of income for many of the community members. So the application was sent to 3 different bodies: the Nova Scotia Department of Environment, the Nova Scotia Department of Fisheries and Aquaculture, and the Federal Department of Fisheries and Oceans for comments regarding this proposal. The Nova Scotia Department of Environment did not come back with any comments. The Nova Scotia Department of Fisheries and Aquaculture came back advising that this was not their area of jurisdiction, but did advise that they didn't see any concerns based on their review of the proposal. The Federal Department of Fisheries and Oceans advised that they didn't have any specific rules or regulations that would inform the planning process, but did provide some resources to pass on to the owner in regards to best practice, and that has been done. The fifth point in regards to community feedback was regarding how this proposal might impact people's property values and taxes. This is not something that can be considered through the planning process. If people do have concerns, they would need to speak to the Property Valuation Corporation Services, who are the people that deal with property assessments, which inform property taxes. Concerns were raised regarding potential impact on availability of water, as all of the surrounding land and the subject site would need to be connected to well water. So this is under the jurisdiction of the Nova Scotia Department of Environment, and a clause or condition included in the draft development agreement requires any future wells to be dug by a licensed well driller and in accordance with the regulations of the Nova Scotia Department of Environment. But I will note that a well water withdrawal permit is not required unless you're withdrawing more than 23,000 litres of water a day. So if this proposal doesn't pass that threshold, they won't require a permit for withdrawal of water. Another point noted from the community was that the land is subject to flooding, and that has been acknowledged through the design proposal, in that all of the domes are well outside of any area of flooding. The laundry and utility building is partially in an area which is subject to the environmentally sensitive area overlay, which effectively just means there will be different built form standards for it, rather than preventing it from being in that location. The next point was in regards to the setback of the cabins. Community members were worried, and I think this was in terms of the original proposal, but also the current proposal, that the original setback was 40 feet, and they were worried that having people in quite close proximity would have an impact to them. So as part of the amended proposal, the setback was more than doubled from the northern property line of the subject site to set back the cabins. But further to that, the cabins themselves are a minimum of 174 feet back from the neighbouring properties. So it's, I guess, on top of that 110 setback, there's additional space from the southern boundary lines of the dwellings facing Greenfield Road to those dwellings. So I believe 3 of the cabins, or sorry, glamping domes, are in excess of 300 feet from neighbouring dwellings. So there's a ranging scale. And then on to guest behaviour and trespassing. There was some concern regarding guests of the proposal entering people's properties or entering neighbouring farming land. So the subject site is currently fenced, and trespassing is something that is under the jurisdiction of the RCMP, so not something that we can deal with directly through this proposal. But as stated before, the draft development agreement does include a condition that requires any areas for guests to gather outside of their cabins be set back that 110 feet to try and keep them away from property boundaries. And then the last major point raised from the community feedback was in regards to safety and the Gasborough River. Residents identifying that the water and tidal, I guess, flows within the river can run quite quickly, and if guests are unfamiliar, they could get themselves into trouble. So as part of the plan at the end of the draft development agreement, gates have been shown on the plan which prohibit guest vehicle access down to the river to, I guess, encourage them not to see it as a swimming location. That being said, a fence between the domes and the river has not been required as part of this proposal. Okay, and again, I know I just dumped a lot on you, but there was, I guess, more in the report. So if you need to refer back to that, that's fine at any point. So I guess moving along, what is a development agreement? It's a legal contract between the municipality and the property owner. It enables uses that would not otherwise be permitted in a zone, and it places site-specific conditions on the location and the design of development, and it runs with the land until discharged by council, or in newer cases, the CAO. So, into policy. Municipal Planning Strategy Policy 2.5.13 states the council shall consider only by development agreement consider only by development agreement within the agricultural designation. So as we saw on the map earlier, the subject site is within the agricultural designation. Proposals for visitor-orientated development not permitted as of right. In evaluating development agreements, council shall be satisfied that, point A, the proposal is for visitor-orientated development or the traffic public, such as but not limited to lodgings, restaurants, event venues, or other types of special attractions. So as we've seen previously and discussed, the application is for lodging. Point B, the subject property has a lot area that can appropriately accommodate the proposed use, any accessory uses and structures, parking areas, and required infrastructure. So the subject site is 7 acres in area, and based on the proposed plan can comfortably accommodate the 8 glamping domes, associated car parking spaces, and septic fields. The subject site has enough space to comfortably separate the domes from each other and set back the domes 110 feet from the northern property boundary. Point C, the site facilities are adequately buffered and or separated from surrounding residential dwellings, other than a residential dwelling occupied by the operator, to mitigate negative impacts associated with noise, light, and other visual impacts. So I guess there's 2 points or 2 parts to the response to this. There are a number of conditions have been placed within the draft development agreement to mitigate light by shading it and pointing it away from residential dwellings. And then there is also the design of the proposal, which has been done to set 6 of the glamping, or the 8 glamping domes predominantly below the ridge line, so they won't be visually, within the view or visually available to neighbouring dwellings. Similarly to that, a condition of the draft development agreement has been put in place to set back areas where guests can congregate a minimum of 110 feet from the neighbouring residential dwellings. Point E, if the use is a listed permitted use, the conditions that prevent the proposal from being permitted as of right in the designation is addressed by development agreement, including but not limited to enhanced buffering and the positioning and design of the buildings and structures. So, as briefly discussed earlier, the rural mixed use A2 zone permits tourist commercial uses if 2 commercial cabins are proposed and they are in association with a dwelling on the land. So the land does not currently have a residential dwelling and more than 2 cabins are proposed, and that some of the cabins do not meet the 250-foot setback requirement or as of right requirement from neighbouring residential uses, which is why we are considering this application through this process. So as discussed before, the setback of the cabins is on a scale from 174 feet through to more than 300 feet. So they have, to a certain extent, tried to meet that minimum 200-foot setback that is part of the as of right requirement. But having said that, conditions have been put in place within the draft development agreement in order to, as best as possible, mitigate any issues relating to noise, light, visibility, and congregation of guests on the land. And then point F, the proposal meets the general criteria as set out in section 5.3, development agreements and amending the land use bylaw, which we will look at on the next slide. So these are the general criteria. As noted on the right-hand side of the slide, the County of Kings is not always the body with jurisdiction over some of these points. So in those cases, we have sent the application to those bodies with jurisdiction for comment. So as stated in the report, the proposal is considered to meet the intent of the municipal planning strategy and doesn't conflict with any provincial or municipal programs, bylaws or regulations, and there is not expected to be any great financial impact on the municipality as a part of this proposal. In terms of land use compatibility, I guess as we've kind of run through before, the domes have been set back from the neighbouring property line by 110 feet, and 6 of the domes have also been set down into the hillside, so there won't be any, there won't be as much visibility as previously proposed, and measures have been taken to mitigate light, noise, and congregation of guests. So as such, staff believe that as best as possible, measures has been taken to reduce any land use conflicts. In terms of adequacy and proximity of recreation and other community facilities, the subject site is in proximity to the Gaspereau River Trail, Gaspereau River Tubing in the summertime, the Wolffield Watershed Nature Preserve, and is also in proximity to the Gaspereau Community Hall for community facilities. In regards to the creation of traffic hazards and congestion, the Nova Scotia Department of Public Works is the body with jurisdiction, and the application was sent to them. As previously stated, no concerns were raised beyond requiring access to be by the existing right-of-way. The application was sent to the Wolffield Fire Department, and the Wolffield Fire Chief advised that there is adequate fire protection services and equipment available for this proposal. The Nova Scotia Department of Environment is the body with jurisdiction over septic systems and well water, and a condition of the draft development agreement requires that any installation of such services is in accordance with all regulations. In terms of the potential for flooding or drainage problems, as stated before, everything except the laundry and utility facility is located well outside of any flood-prone areas, and the laundry and utility facility would need to comply with the development requirements of the environmentally sensitive area overlay. In terms of negative impacts on farming operations, there's not expected to be any negative impacts, but again, a condition of the development agreement has required the owners to acknowledge that this is an agricultural area where they are in proximity to agricultural uses, which may result in noise, odors, dust, flies, etc. And given all of the information provided to us, the site is considered suitable based on its grade and soil types. So, where are we? So, this is the development agreement process that we have undertaken so far. Completed application was received on July 30th of 2024, and a public information meeting was held on the 4th of September. The application was amended in January of this year, and so staff have conducted the review following that amendment. We are now here at the Planning Advisory Committee phase, and today you will vote and make a recommendation to full Municipal Council, which will be considered at initial consideration, where the Municipal Council will vote to decide whether to hold a public hearing. If a public hearing is held, following that there is final consideration where full Municipal Council will vote and make a decision on the application. Following that decision, there is a 14-day appeal period. So, this is a summary of the development agreement. It enables the development of 8 tourist cabins in the form of glamping domes and a laundry and utility building. It establishes a maximum building footprints and heights for the domes. It establishes a 110-foot setback requirement along the northern lot line and a 50-foot setback from the eastern lot line. It regulates lighting and signage, it regulates subdivision, and it regulates access to the site. So, this is the recommendation. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends that Municipal Council give initial consideration to and hold a public hearing regarding entering into a development agreement to permit a tourist commercial use at PID 55224067 Greenfield Road, Gaspereau, which is substantively the same as the draft set out in Appendix E of the report dated May 22nd, 2025. And I believe that date is wrong. Sorry, that should also be July 15th.
That's okay. It's July, so I feel like dates are ambivalent at this time. They're hard. Okay. Thank you for your presentation, Perry. At this point this is the point in the meeting where we look for questions from the Planning Advisory Committee on the presentation and on the details of the presentation and the application before we take a motion. So questions first and debate once the motion's on the floor. Councillor Gates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarification, can you confirm that this parcel is not considered agricultural resource?
Yeah, the zoning is A2, so I don't know if, Perry, you want to speak a little bit more about A2 and the difference between A2 and, when you say resource, Councillor Gates, you mean like forestry? Or A1, okay, you want the difference between A1 and A2, okay. Laura's got her light on, Perry, if you want me to defer to her.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, now she turned it off. Now she's on again, go ahead.
Sorry about that. Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Gates. I believe the terminology you're using would be what would appear on your property tax bill, which is your assessment, which is not linked to your zoning. That's entirely separate. So this is the rural mixed-use zone, not the agricultural A1 zone.
Okay, thank you for that question. Good. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, through you to the planner. Thank you very much for the very detailed presentation. It, in fact, answers a lot of the questions already. I'm curious to the land that faces the current residents, and you referred to a fence. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, do you know if it's the intent of the developer to keep that fence? I suspect it's probably on the property line, but I'm just looking at perhaps the benefit of that fence to respond to the concern of the tourists accessing the residents nearby. So I'm just kind of curious about that fence. Is that a permanent structure that will remain, or do you know if the developer has the intent of assuring that a fence is in place?
Through you, Madam Chair. So I guess for a little bit of history, the land that is hypothetically going to be used for the domes is currently a horse pasture. So there is a fence there that I guess will keep animals in from the neighbouring residential land. So I have no knowledge of any proposed change to that fence. My understanding is that it would remain as a standard farm fence.
Oh, if you want to answer the question, that's fine. Just come on up to the microphone there and state your name and address, and just answer strictly the question, and then we'll get to comments. in a
Oh,
minute.
perfect, no problem. Councilor Everett, thank you for the question, councilors. The fence was installed by my parents, and through the developer has actually forced us to remove it. So that fence no longer exists and hasn't existed in a while.
Thank you.
All right, so, thank you.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Okay, no offense. All right. Any further questions of the presenter at this point in the meeting? So just for a process, so PAC considers this motion. Should the motion be successful, it goes to council, at which point council would recommend to have a public hearing, at which point it's more of a public debate, but of course we do accept comments from the public today. But the public hearing, should it proceed to that stage, is a more publicly, I guess, more designed to receive public feedback, although we are here to receive feedback today. At this point, any further questions or comments on the proposal? Okay, I have none. Is there anyone willing to move the motion this afternoon? Moved by Deputy Mayor Peckford, seconded by Citizen Member Logan Morse. Thank you. Discussion on the motion at hand, as it's been moved and seconded. Any debate? For a reminder, the motion reads, the Planning Advisory Committee recommends that Municipal Council give initial consideration to and hold a public hearing regarding entering into a development agreement to permit a tourist commercial use at PID 55224067 Greenfield Road, Gaspereau, which is substantively the same as the draft set out in Appendix E of the report dated July 15th, 2025. Moved and seconded. Any debate on the motion? Okay, seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor or otherwise, please indicate in the usual fashion. Okay, the motion carries. So we'll progress to council. Is there any other business to come before Planning Advisory Committee before we go to public comment? No other business? All right, we'll take comments from the public. So anyone wish to speak to this can come on up to the microphone and just give your name and civic, and we're happy to hear from you at this time. So I expect you all didn't come just to listen. Come on up just to give us your name and your civic, and five minutes-ish.
5 minutes each, 4-minute countdown.
Well, you know what?
Because you're going to get me a minute. My name is Kendall Eisner. My parents reside at 2992 Greenfield Road, which is facing into the property, which is, I believe, as identified, the closest setback. My family has utilized this land for agriculture for 50 years. It continued to be accessed and used for agriculture up until a lease being broken after the public meeting. I look at this council and I understand change. I do. I believe in change. But when you have a developer moving in, bringing heavy equipment in, intimidating seniors, limiting their use to land, causing them to re-fence property but still hold within the agreement that there's a fence on the property. They forced us to take it down. They have forced us to fight for a lease that we believe is still in effect for that property. Our family has the use through my mother for as long as she wishes to use it, and has been in place through the Crofts and then through this owner, which was further confirmed last September when he accepted the check, just prior to the public meeting of announcing this. What the council does not know is we are talking about a right-of-way that limits the use of heavy equipment, all but the months of April and May. This land access was not granted by the previous owners for tourism. Our land and our lease in our community is not up for giving away our agricultural land. We have tried to work with this developer. We have offered to meet with the developer, and all we receive is lawyer letters. So yes, I am not happy, but I am glad to see some setbacks. But through the own admission, she has said you don't meet the setbacks. It's nice that they've made changes, but previous council has set up the setbacks to protect residents, to protect our seniors, to protect the people who have lived in the community for close to a century and continue to live there. In this particular right-of-way, in 1976, the car actually went through one of the hoses at the end of the White Rock Road where it meets Greenfield Road, which is exactly where this intersects. I don't remember that specific name of that person. In I'm guessing the dates here, in around 84, 85, a lady by the name of Donna Levy, yes, the Levys of the White Rock, also smashed into the bank and almost was paralyzed. And then again, in 1988, at approximately, I'm going to guess 1959 White Rock Road, we lost my cousin because of a line of sight, because of a hill in the way. But they allowed the road and driveways there anyway. So we need to consider, yes, let's ask this developer, show us the sight lines, show us the distances. I know we have sent it to the Department of Labor. They're looking at a map. We need trees trimmed. We need lights. This has been an accident corner for a while. The right-of-way, as I mentioned, currently does not allow this use for heavy equipment. They're more than welcome to get an amendment to that, but I have not seen it. They have still got to go through my family, who holds a lease on this land, and believe we still hold a lease on this land. We would be happily have a horse in my backyard to this date if it was not for you to even consider this development. On this property, back in the 70s and 80s, was what was called the Gasbro Dump, which would be just east of the dwelling unit they showed by the commercial development. I did not see that anywhere on the plans. Very common. Household garbage was dumped just below a septic field. The report noted a residence living in a dwelling unit to reduce noise. There is no dwelling unit on the property. Or in your own concession, you said there is no dwelling unit currently on the property.
Just a reminder, we're going to talk to the
Yeah,
the
but-
committee, not
sorry.
the staff.
I-
That's okay.
Just in the report,
It's
sorry.
okay.
My apologies. So I wonder who is going to be there to enforce. There is not a dwelling unit. There is a fish house that my friends and I used as a party spot when I was young. The Gasbro River. Tubers well know and have used the upper part of the river for a reason. The lower part of the river is very dangerous. I grew up swimming in the Gasbro Valley. I've watched friends almost drown. I have rescued people from drowning. We used to use the piers to water ski off of. There's no fence design from between the cabins and the existing industrial use. There's equipment stored there. We used to take the diesel and light the fires. We used to have the campfires by the river. We used to dive off those platforms, but we grew up there. We knew the area. These people have no idea that lower section of the river, how turbulent it is. Thank heavens the upper bridge was set as a limit for the tubers years ago. So I'm looking at the council saying, do we really have all the questions that we need answered before we consider this? How could a developer come in here, a guy who owns, a fisherman come in here who owns industrial properties, kick a horse off a field for agriculture use. Force fences to be taken down. Stop uses of the land and enjoyment. I'm not sure how this council can accept that.
That's about 5 minutes, if that's
Okay.
okay.
It's good.
Like I said, if council agrees, it'll move to initial consideration to a
Yes,
public hearing,
do.
and then there'll be lots of time also to
Yeah.
talk about. and
So
to
I
raise
thank the
concerns.
council for the time. I will point out one quick last point.
Sure.
I don't believe the agriculture noise was meant because of the agriculture coming in. It was a noise going out. I don't know if any of you heard about Brian Hatfield down in Sackville, put on the radio, please don't have fireworks. Had fireworks, and then they actually come in and intimidated them and have fireworks after. So I think that you may have misunderstood the concern raised. So thank you very much, council, for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Eisner, for coming and sharing your thoughts. Appreciate it. Anyone else wish to address the Planning Advisory Committee at this time? Come on up.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
My name is Andrew Bust, and I am representing Peter and Ellen Kenny and some others on the 3010 Greenfield Road.
Do you mind there's a little button, just lifting that up a bit. You're very tall,
Oh,
and we
sure.
can't hear you. Just, the
that all
sound
right?
travels very strangely. And there's like a little button that actually lifts up that whole,
Oh,
yeah, and
there we go.
there, thanks, Lorianne. There you
I
go.
could've-
No, you're good, you're good. We want to make it, accessible for all, so.
Of course.
Now we can hear you a little better.
Okay, perfect. So, given the inevitability of the public hearing, I think I'll probably truncate my remarks to your great pleasure. First of all, I think I'd like to acknowledge the hard work of everybody involved in this. It's not easy. The planning committee and also county staff. We just kind of want to acknowledge that it's a difficult job, balancing competing interests. We want to respect everyone involved, including the applicant and the landowner. We think it's important. Gaspereau is a very neighborly place, and we would like to extend that ethic to, even sometimes contentious planning issues. So, again, thank you very much for everyone who's in attendance as well. I'm kind of a vessel for the many concerns of some of the people along Greenfield Road, people spanning generations, people who've toiled in the soil, who've worked the land, who've worked to create a wonderful community I'm happy to be a small part of. And we understand, to reiterate Mr. Eisner's point, that communities do change. We understand that. We cannot escape progress, and in some ways we don't want to. What we're here to express today is really that we care deeply about how the community changes. We care very deeply about preserving the character of our community. It's our belief that one of the most important lessons of reconciliation is that we should, all of us, care deeply about how we change as people and as communities. And we should be aware on a deep level of what we're sacrificing in the name of progress and development, and what it is our duty to preserve. So, as I said, I will significantly truncate my remarks. We did have some feedback with respect to the fence, and it's in the report it stated that there was a fence there, and that seemed to ameliorate some of the concerns of the residents who abut the property. But of course that fence is no longer standing. So the degree to which that fence impacted the application, we think speaks to maybe some of the factual incompleteness of the application. And perhaps given the fact that we are transcending the as-of-right use and entering into a development agreement, I think it is kind of up to us as community members to care about the diligence and have a high standard for the completeness and accuracy of the applications that move forward and are decided by this body and council. So, I spoke to the fence issue, of course. Another issue was also some questions around the dangers associated with new septic fields, and I understand that there are built-to-form processes and procedures that are in place from Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Change that will mitigate some of the dangers that exist for people who have their livelihoods tied up in the commercial fishery. But I think the public, especially those people, deserve some of the feedback. So there, as of May 22nd, 2025, the report to the Planning Advisory Committee did not include any of the details at that time as part of the report that was available online. The Nova Scotia Department of Environment and Climate Change nor the Nova Scotia Department of Fisheries and Aquaculture hadn't responded at that point, and there was no mention of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. So perhaps making that report available or the response available to the community could help allay some of the concerns that still exist and are very real, and you know, people's livelihoods are tied up in this. So I think that would be helpful moving forward. So I will kind of skip over some of the talking points I had and focus kind of on two separate issues, one relating to the factual accuracy and completeness of the application. It was noted that the site was 7 acres, which is true. However, because of the environmental constraints O1 zone, as well as the ESA overlay, in addition to the 110-foot setbacks and on the northern boundary and 50-foot setbacks on the eastern boundary, the actual developmental space allotted for the 8 what are we calling them? Glamping dome, sorry. The justification for the Part 2, Section 5, Policy 13, Clause A, which is that the appropriate amount of land is available on the lot. I think the calculation was done on the 304,920 square feet of the full 7 acres, when in reality perhaps a more complete and accurate calculation might be done on the truncated part where it's just the development itself. So that's kind of tangential to kind of the central focus of our remarks here today, which relate to Part 2, Section 5, Policy 13, Clause C, which states that the site facilities are adequately buffered and or separated from surrounding residential dwellings, or then a residential dwelling occupied by the operator, to mitigate negative impacts associated with noise, light, and other visual impacts. The response in the report from the applicant and staff were that the increased setbacks were an appropriate response and mitigated the concerns of the residents. I think whether it was a result of miscommunication or misapprehension, one of the central concerns, I think, went without being addressed at all. The modification of the application that has met with the approval of county staff seemed to be focused on conditioning the external lighting features to be shaded and face away from neighboring properties, which was only part of the concerns of the locals. And while staff are of the opinion that reasonable steps have been taken to mitigate any negative impacts on neighboring residential dwellings, it's our firm belief that this recommendation is based on a miscommunication of one of the central concerns as it relates to the increase in the light pollution from the proposed development. We're of the opinion, the royal we, I guess as it were. I'm sorry, I will wrap up here. I appreciate your patience. We're of the opinion that we're the applicant, the county staff, and this committee fully aware of our concerns as it relates to the inevitable light pollution from this development. All parties involved would surely reject the development on the property as proposed. The Gaspereau River Valley has a long and storied history, not only dating back to the initial land grants in the 1760s, some of the ancestors of whom are still working the same lands as their forebears, and even further back than the Acadian census of 1701, where they mentioned the Rivière de Gaspera. My apologies for the pronunciation. In fact, an ethnographic study published in the 1990s reveals that the Gaspereau catchment area was occupied by the Mi'kmaq peoples as far back as 2,000 years ago. In the Mi'kmaq culture, the sky, or Musqueam, holds deep spiritual significance. and representing the first level of creation and associated with the giver of life. The municipal planning strategy references the importance of protecting unique pastoral landscapes. We believe this committee and future iterations of the municipal planning strategy will recognize the importance of protecting our unique skyscapes as well. The mountain that separates Wolfville from the Gaspereau Valley does much to eliminate the light pollution that attends our patterns of development, or what we call progress. The night sky, in all its glory, in Gaspereau, is a sight to behold. Allowing these types of developments, meritorious as they may be in other contexts, will encourage a pattern of development that will forever change our ability to commune with our place among the stars. On its own, it might only affect a few hundred people, but the precedent it sets is worrisome. And it's why we've looked at the old ways to understand what it is our obligation to preserve. For 2,000 plus years, our fellow humans have been able to stand in the Gaspereau Valley and be struck with awe at the big sky above. And unfortunately, for all the hard work of the planning department and the good intentions of the applicant, a development like the one proposed on that pasture will jeopardize the future ability of future generations to, through the stars, connect with those who have gone before us and to our collective inheritance, a store of wealth we feel we must protect. The values embodied in the municipal planning strategy reflect a need for a diversity of places and spaces within this great county of ours. Had this development been proposed in a growth center, we would have happily celebrated this kind of progress. Excuse me. As it stands, we feel it is our duty to preserve the character of our community in honor and in reconciliation and oppose this development, and we humbly implore you, the committee, to reject the development agreement. I should note that the Gaspereau residents have an extensive list of concerns that I haven't been able to touch on all today, but we can make them available to the committee at your request. So with that, I'm going to get back to my water.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you mind repeating your name for me?
Andrew.
Andrew, what's your last name?
Bust.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to spend 5 minutes or less at the microphone? Okay. Going once. Going twice. No one's jumping up. So I will trust Andrew has spoken on behalf of those of you who are in attendance. And at that, we will conclude comments from the public if we're sure. Okay. Next meeting is to be determined. Planning Advisory Committee generally follows the direction of council when it comes to meetings in August. I think at the release of this schedule, there was still some debate about whether or not council is meeting in August. Council meets in August. It's likely due to something time sensitive or emergent. So we will leave that to be determined, and we'll let the committee know well in advance if there is a meeting required. And with that, we're at our final item, which is adjournment. So would anyone like to adjourn the meeting? Moved by Deputy Mayor Peckford, seconded by Councillor McPherson. Much appreciated. All those in favor or otherwise, please signify in the usual fashion. And a welcome to Leslie over there, who's joining the planning department and who will be helping us with our Planning Advisory Committee meetings going forward. And much thanks to Lorianne for all of her work in the past couple years. And thank you, staff, for all the work you do. Thank you, everyone who came and took in our meeting and participated in local government in your community. We really appreciate you being here and sharing your voice with us. And thanks to the committee for your attendance. Have a great day, everyone.